Good morning, boys. As we work through chapter 15 on the last things, I thought it might be interesting to look at some famous last words. Often the last words a person speaks may reveal something about how they view life and what lies beyond this life. I'm not sure if you recognize this gentleman. When you look at him, I'll give you a clue. He's the inventor of the incandescent electric light bulb. I believe he also invented the phonograph. It's Thomas Alva Edison. He was not a man of religion. He was a skeptic. He believed that God existed, but he didn't think organized religion had much to offer. But his last words were these: "It is very beautiful over there." I wonder what he meant by that. Was he looking at how pretty his neighbor's garden was out the window, or did he have a moment of revelation as he drew closer to death? It's hard to say. Do you recognize this lady? It's not Kate Winslet. It's Elizabeth I, the Queen of England for about 70 years during the 16th century. And Elizabeth was the last of the Tudors, daughter of Henry VIII, Protestant herself, but relatively tolerant of Catholics. She lived in the heyday of the monarchy. What Elizabeth wants, Elizabeth gets. That's the way it was. Now she's here on her deathbed. And what does she say? She has a moment of revelation. She realizes that death is the great equalizer. And she cries out, "All my possessions I would give for a moment of time." But alas, it was not to be. This gentleman is our seventh president. I'm not sure if you know who he is, Andy Jackson. History has not dealt with him kindly. He's known nowadays as being a ruthless person, as being an opponent of the Abolition Act to get rid of slavery. He gave it to the Indians good in the, what was that called? The Indian Removal Act. Anyway, not the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. But his last words, he says to his children, those gathered at his deathbed, "Oh, do not cry. Be good children, and we will meet again in heaven." I wonder if he believes it. Or is he just saying something to make them feel good at the end of a pretty bitter life? Or is he giving himself some hope by saying, be good children and we'll meet in heaven, presuming that he's going to go there? We'll never know. The person in this picture is Thomas Becket. Becket was appointed to a high position by King Henry II. I think it was Henry II. And Henry appointed him thinking he would be a pushover, a patsy, that would do whatever he asked him to do. He wanted Thomas Becket to sign a document limiting the freedom of the Catholic Church in England. Becket refused. That put him on the king's bad side. One day the king says to some of his advisors, he says, "Oh, that someone would rid me of this meddlesome priest." And they take him very seriously. They rush off to the cathedral and they slaughter him. They stab him to death as he's celebrating Mass at the altar. His last words: "For the name of Jesus and the protection of the church, I am ready to embrace death." He put himself second. Okay. Next one. This is the author of the Communist Manifesto. I'm not sure if you recognize him. Karl Marx. He got quite a grisly look there. A German, but he died as an expatriate, a man without a country. Anyway, the father of socialism. Interesting person. He saw religion as a reflection of a flawed society. He gave that famous quote saying that religion is the opium of the people, right? Well, he wasn't very friendly on his deathbed either. He yelled to his chambermaid, "Go on, get out. Last words are for fools who haven't said enough." Well, maybe so. This guy you may know from English class. Father of American Gothic literature, inventor of the detective story. The bird there is a clue, the raven. It's Edgar Allan Poe. A man with a rough life, very talented, but an alcoholic and substance abuser. He married his 13-year-old cousin, which was rather odd. She died 11 years later, unfortunately, and he died pretty much in misery. His final words: "Lord, help my poor soul." All the talent he had did him no good at that last moment. Nor did it any good to this fellow. This is Cecil Rhodes. I don't know if you've ever read or learned about him. He was a British politician and colonial leader. And he made a vast fortune in gold and diamonds, particularly over in South Africa. He realized at the end of his life that he'd made some mistakes. He was plagued by personal scandals, repercussions of unwise political decisions. And at the end of his life, even though he was the richest man in the world, so little done, so much to do. Maybe he was doing the wrong things all those years. All right, here is, do you know her? This is a photograph of her on the one side, and then a kind of a holy picture. Teresa of Lisieux, Teresa of the Child Jesus. She entered the convent at a young age, 19th century French saint. She believed that she could find God in doing the simplest actions. She contracted tuberculosis. She lay dying in the convent, clutching a crucifix in her hands, gasping for breath. And all she could say was, "Oh, I love him. My God, I love you." Totally wrapped up in her relationship with God. Okay. My question to you is, what would you hope that your dying words would be? How do you want people to remember you and the life that you led? So I ask you to look at this quote from Blessed Junipero Serra. Now he's Saint Junipero Serra. He said, "Life is uncertain and in fact may be very brief. If we compare it with eternity, we'll clearly realize that it cannot be more than an instant. A happy death of all things in life is our principal concern. For if we attain that, then it matters little if we lose all the rest. But if we don't attain that, nothing else will be of much value. It's a lifetime of 50, 60, 100 years compared with the blessings of eternity. What do you want to live your life for?" So for today, boys, I'll ask you to respond to these several questions. I'll reprint them in your assignment block there. First question, what does Saint Sarah mean that a happy death should be our principal concern? Or what makes it a happy death? What do you imagine heaven to be like? How does an understanding that life on earth is just an instant in comparison with eternity help you to live your life now? And what 5 things would you like to accomplish in life? Question 5 will be this. Some of you on an earlier answer had some questions about this device. Remember, smoke comes out of it. It's called a censer. So that's your word for the day. It's spelled Censer. And this little cup holds a lit piece of charcoal. And what we do is we take incense, frankincense. This is what frankincense looks like. I guess I could make a bigger screen. Oh, it's okay. I'll just put some of the frankincense on the lit charcoal that I prepared earlier. And in a very short time, it starts to smoke and produce a pleasing fragrance. And so this is a censer. It's the word of the day. You see the smoke coming out of it? And of course, we swing it this way to spread that smoke around. What it represents is a couple of things. Our prayers rising up to God, like the smoke of the incense. And it also gives a pleasant smell and a sense of beauty and mystery to the Catholic liturgy. So have a great day, do your assignment, and I'll see you soon. God bless you.